Ineffective deployment.
People will know what a taser looks like. Obviously it's a yellow plastic thing that looks a bit like a gun. Ultimately it doesn't fire bullets like a conventional gun. It has a cartridge on the end which fires 2 barbs. They're attached to copper wires which are 21 feet long, so the range of a taser is a maximum of 21 feet. And those barbs will attach themselves to a person, either to the skin or to clothing, and they will pass some electricity into the person's body in order to incapacitate them. Firing a taser is not a particularly technical issue. It's not like a handgun, which there's a lot more sort of, if you like, technical handling issues with a handgun. Firing a taser is a bit like letting a party popper off. It's really quite simple. But most of the training goes into things like the effects on the human body, de-escalating the situation, about assessing the situation, justifying its use, the judgment of the officer.
Excellent. Index there, folks. Index there. Super.
They were specifically introduced into the UK to be a standoff weapon that could be used at say several metres range to provide distance control for potentially violent suspects. Now, in those situations, in situations where there's an imminent threat to life or very serious injury, a taser can be an effective weapon to deal with those situations. Tasers used at that high level of threshold, then the officer can always justify it. When it becomes tricky is when it's used much lower down on the threshold of serious injury, and then it becomes more of a compliance issue. And it's at those levels where I think using a taser against emotionally disturbed or vulnerable people presents some of the most acute problems.
I couldn't tell you here and now that there is a set criteria for officers to get to before they actually pull the taser out. It is down to the individual to justify how they've done it. They are accountable to the law, and if they do not account to the law, and if it isn't done within the law, then obviously measures will be taken to deal with that situation. It would be impossible for anybody to turn around and say that Taser is 100% safe. There is absolutely no one that could say that. And the reason being is because when we're using force, there is no such thing as a 100% safe option. All options that we have carry some form of risk. It's probably fair to say that Taser probably holds the lowest risk for us. But again, it depends on the person who's operating it at the time, the circumstances that they're in. The way that we negate that is by having excellent training. And the training package that is in place across the UK covers most eventualities that officers need to know in order to use it safely. And they don't actually get to carry it operationally until they've demonstrated to us as instructors that they are competent to be able to use it.
There's been a couple of situations where if we didn't have Taser, the person that we were dealing with would have probably been either CS'd or battened, which would have looked horrendous and caused us injury. Having the Taser meant that nobody had to touch him, and we could deal with it at a safe distance and nobody got hurt.
Good, select a safe and reholster.
A lot of the gang members on our borough know that we carry Taser. I think it makes a difference. I think people look at it and go, oh, hang on a minute, I won't mess around here.
It's not a pain-free process. So to be tasered really, really hurts. One of my favourite quotes is from a journalist who was subject to tasering, and he said it was like having his muscles shredded with a fork.
Is it safe? No, it's not safe. It's a weapon, it's not risk-free, and there are times when people are going to fall over and they're going to get hurt. But the electricity is very low risk, and if you said to me, would I rather be battened by a burly officer who's going to hit me across my elbows and my knees with a metal ass baton, or would I rather be tasered, which is going to last 5 seconds and I'm going to get up and brush myself off and be fine? I'll choose the Taser, thank you.
2 out of 10 times a taser is fired, which actually means that 8 out of 10 times the mere presence of the taser is enough to bring that situation to a very swift conclusion. Officers can actually use taser in a number of ways that don't actually require them to be fired. And that, I think people do sometimes get confused about what a use is. Now, a use of a taser is the mere presence of it, drawing it, aiming it, using the red dot sighting system, arcing it, which is obviously seeing the electricity arc across the front, the drive stun, which is the cartridge off.
Ineffective deployment.
Now, the cartridge off drive stun is probably one of the most controversial parts of the actual training or the processes with regards to taser. The reason why it's so controversial is, number one, it's a cartridge off, so it's almost like a, I suppose if you want to call it something, it would be like a cattle prod or something, whereby the electricity is just arcing between the two contacts on the end of the taser. And when you place it on somebody, it's going to feel very uncomfortable for them, and it can leave some signature marks.
How you doing? Look at me. Look up at me. Look up at me. Right, your right hand.
Once an officer has made a decision to actually fire a taser, and that taser has had effect on that person, the officer has to go through a number of checks and balances at that particular time to make sure that everything's okay. Their priority is to make sure that that situation has been brought to a swift conclusion, because it could involve life-threatening actions. So on top of that, an officer is also trained to look at that person to see if there's any need for any medical attention at that moment in time.
Right, have you got any injuries, pal?
Oh, I don't know. I think I hit my head.
You hit your head?
Yeah.
Right, we'll get you in an ambulance, alright? Just stay like that.
It doesn't go wrong very often. We're not perfect, that mistakes will be made, and occasionally things will go wrong, but we are probably one of the most accountable police services in the world, and when it does go wrong, officers will be held to account, and our training and policy and everything will be held to account.
Introducing the most customer-driven taser device ever developed. A device that's feature-rich, simple to use, and similar in size and weight to the X26. The Taser X2.
In terms of the actual technology, it's improving all the time. There are other models that are coming onto the market now that we're testing. There are two that we're actively looking at now. One is the X26P, which is exactly the same as the one we've got now, but it's got a better, if you like, memory system, computer system inside it, so it captures more information, and we would argue it's slightly safer. And there's also the X2, which is basically a taser that's got two cartridges on the front, so you can fire it twice. The opportunity to fire it twice is reasonably attractive, but we're just looking at the technology now to see whether it's fit for purpose.
And metering accurately delivers the precise amount of current to maximize safety and effectiveness.
The reality is that technology moves on, and when technology moves on, it is, open to us to actually look at what's going on out there. And we will continue to do so.
Amnesty doesn't endorse any particular product, but we are always supportive of any technology that can increase that can increase the transparency and accountability of how that weapon is used.
No! No, I ain't getting nicked. No, I'm not getting nicked. I'm not going back. I ain't going back to jail. I ain't getting nicked.
But I guess the point is, it continues to be a weapon, and it's how that weapon is used that's the real concern for Amnesty. We want to make sure that it's only used in response to the most serious of incidents, because of the type of equipment that it is. It's potentially lethal and causes severe pain. But in the end, it comes down to how these weapons are going to be used, and that's the fundamental thing for a human rights organisation.
You've been tasered, alright? Keep calm, don't reach for the knife.
Oh, I won't.
Alright?
Mm.